Well, countries around the world are increasing sanctions against Russia, hoping to pressure the government there to end this attack on Ukraine. Just last night, Canada and Western allies agreed to block some Russian banks from SWIFT, a key network connecting financial institutions around the world. They are also imposing restrictive measures against Russia's central bank. Bob Rae is Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador Rae, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good to see you, David. Nice to join you.
On top of these financial sanctions, we've seen countries like Germany sending more weapons to Ukraine. I mean, how significant do you think these latest measures are, and what does it all say about how the West is responding?
I think it's all very good news from our point of view, because it shows a great deal of solidarity, more than I think many skeptics thought was possible at the beginning. I have to say, much of it as the result of some very hard work by a number of people around the world who've been working very, very hard to achieve this degree of unity. And I think it's the fact that the Germans' decision is really extremely important. They've agreed to increase their defense budget by $100 billion in order to get to the 2% number for NATO. They've agreed to supply weapons to Ukraine. And the shift in their position over the last several weeks to a much, much stronger leadership position is extremely significant, and I think will have an enormous impact on our collective solidarity.
Well, what's your sense about how Vladimir Putin is reacting to this? I mean, we've already seen that he's ordered Russian nuclear deterrent forces to be on high alert. And there is a concern that we could see an increase in violence in response to these new measures aimed specifically at the civilian population in Ukraine.
Well, it's a very tough situation, but I think a lot of people in Russia, to the people of Russia, are showing by everything I've seen on social media and everything we're seeing in real time around all of Russia. We're seeing a tremendous reaction against what President Putin is doing. I think that as he becomes increasingly extremist in his language, less in control of his emotions, all of which is very obvious for anyone just watching him, I think there'll be a lot of people in Russian leadership positions in the economy, in the military, in their political system, who will be wondering why he is being allowed to lead the entire country into this very, very dangerous and negative situation for Russia. This campaign has proven to be a significant disaster for President Putin. And I think the Russian people are increasingly coming to understand that.
No, and we've certainly seen that unrest and the protests in Moscow. But, he is nuclear signaling this morning, Ambassador. And dictators tend not to have retirement plans. So, what do we make of these moves in terms of the readiness of the nuclear deterrence?
That's a sign of his deeper irrationality. And that's why I say I think it's anyone in Russia who values security and peace, and there are a lot of people in Russia who do, and there are a lot of positions of responsibility in the Russian political and economic and military system who understand the importance of stability, will know that to take Russia down deeper than it's already gone into the pathways of complete irrationality is very dangerous for Russia, as it is for the rest of the world. But this is not a time for any of us to be intimidated. This is a time for us to be clear-headed, determined, and above all, united in our opposition to what President Putin is doing.
I wonder, sir, what you make of the news that President Zelensky has agreed to talks between Ukraine and Russia, and that they're going to be held at this undisclosed location on the Ukraine-Belarus border, and the talks will be held without preconditions. What do we make of this development?
It's very hard to tell. I think that it shows that President Zelensky is, of course, willing to talk. He's indicated that all along. He's suggested consistently. The last broadcast he gave before the horrible attack by the Russian troops on Ukraine, that he was willing to talk. So I think the interesting question is, why are the Russians so eager to talk? I think the reason is because this is not going well for them. And it's as much about their asking for talks as it is President Zelensky agreeing. I think he didn't want to go to Belarus. That was a smart idea on his part. He also refused to accept Foreign Minister Lavrov's insistence that these talks would only happen once there'd been a total surrender by Ukraine. So speaking without preconditions, it seems to me, is just a common sense approach to diplomacy. You can always speak without preconditions, but not under the terms that Russia was originally insisting on. So we'll see what happens. I think President Zelensky is a truly remarkable individual and somebody who has, through his leadership, been able to transform the context in which we're all having these conversations. Nobody believed when Putin started out on this that this would be a long conversation on a Sunday. And in fact, the resistance, the courage, the determination, the solidarity of the Ukrainian people and the leadership of President Zelensky is making a huge difference, frankly, to all of us. I think that the changes we've seen in the solidarity of the alliance have everything to do with President Zelensky's leadership.
No, I think you're certainly right on the assessment of the situation. The military analyst is that the Russian advance has not gone as well as Vladimir Putin has hoped. NATO is rallying together and arming the Ukrainians, and the West is burning down the Russian financial system. But, you know, against the backdrop of this is diplomacy of sorts and what's happening at the United Nations. And we've seen Ukraine's president tweeted that he spoke with the UN Secretary General and asked for Russia to be deprived of its Security Council vote. I mean, is this something that's even possible under the way the UN is constituted, sir?
I wouldn't say that nothing is impossible. I would say that nothing is impossible, but I would also say that it's not quite that easy, principally because of the Russian veto. So I think the focus at the UN now is going to be that once the Security Council has agreed to disagree and Russia has vetoed, that then transfers the debate and the resolution and the steps that we can take to what we call a United for Peace approach in the General Assembly, where the General Assembly can move in, as the General Assembly did most historically in Korea in 1950, when the Russians vetoed any effort to deal with aggression in Korea. So that's happening now. We're having discussions this morning. Our teams are meeting up to look at a resolution. How that will come forward, we anticipate that debate will take place tomorrow and Tuesday, probably a vote sometime this week. But we are also engaged at the UN in something else, which I think is extremely important, and that is the humanitarian side of things, the amount of work that's going to be required to repair and heal in Ukraine, and to deal with the incredible impact that this invasion has had on the people of Ukraine is something that's going to require a great deal of work and coordination by all of us, including Canada, because we are such an important friend and ally of Ukraine, and because we historically have been such a strong recipient of refugees from around the world. So all of Eastern Europe is upended because of what's happened. We have thousands of people crossing the border every hour. And the humanitarian impact inside Ukraine is devastating. So that's another very important part of what the UN is engaged in, and we're busy working on that as well. Canada's a top 10 donor to the UN and top 10 donor to all of the humanitarian work that the UN does. So we're very much involved in those discussions too.
Okay. Ambassador Bob Rae, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good to talk to you, David. Nice to see you again.